My parents bought my sister a $250 0-cent K apartment. I worked night shifts and got called a disgrace until I made a move that changed everything. I, a 26-year-old male, landed my first job when I was 16, working the night shift at this sketchy gas station on the outskirts of the city. A taunting note from Lila, "You'll never be me," slipped under my door, igniting my fury. But I didn't have much choice in the matter. See, my parents made it crystal clear: if you want to go to college, you're going to have to help pay for it. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a straight-up expectation. Their cold ultimatum echoed in my mind, a constant reminder of my place. I didn't have dreams of becoming a doctor, a lawyer, or whatever image my parents had cooked up in their heads. But what I wanted never really mattered much in our house. What mattered was their vision. They wanted a son they could brag about at those boring family get-togethers. Their whispers of Ethan's "our pride" at gatherings cut deeper than I'd admit. So I picked up every single shift they threw at me. Nights, weekends, holidays, it didn't matter. I was that guy who'd cover for anyone. "You're wasting your youth," Caleb sneered, his party inviting a cruel jab I ignored. Like this one time, my buddy Caleb was having this massive 17th birthday party everyone was going to, but nope, I was stuck selling cigarettes to the same 5 locals and watching truckers microwave those disgusting burritos that smelled like feet, all so I could scrape together enough for tuition. Eventually, I managed to save enough to cover my first semester at the local university. A hard-won victory they dismissed as just the start. My sister Lila, though, is a completely opposite story. She's 3 years younger than me, the golden child of the family. I have to paint the picture for you guys. Lila was that girl in high school who was moderately pretty, but acted like she was God's gift to the universe. She learned early on how to manipulate my parents in ways that would make a CIA operative jealous. Her crocodile tears were a performance I'd come to loathe. While I was getting robbed at gunpoint, yeah, that happened twice, and dealing with creeps hanging around the gas pumps at 2 a.m., she was busy complaining about how boring high school was and how her friends were going to lake houses for spring break. And my parents, they'd bend over backwards to fix every little inconvenience in her life. Didn't like her English tutor, they'd find another one by the end of the week. Wanted the newest iPhone? Boom. Latest model without even having to ask twice. "She deserves the best," Mom would say, her bias a slap in my face. I didn't resent Lila at first. She was my baby sister, and I still felt protective of her, despite everything. But as time went on, it became painfully obvious my parents didn't just love her more. They straight up idolized her. They'd sit around at dinner dissecting her minor accomplishments like she just cured cancer, while my 10-hour shifts and decent grades barely registered as conversation topics. Let me give you an example of the Lila worship in our house. When she was 15, she got cast as a background character in the school play. Literally had 3 lines. My parents invited the entire extended family over for a celebratory dinner, made a goddamn 4-course meal, and bought her flowers. Meanwhile, when I made the dean's list while working 30 hours a week, my dad nodded and said, "That's what you're supposed to do." Their indifference was a wound I'd turn into strength. You know that feeling when you're busting your ass and nobody gives a damn, but someone else gets praised for doing the bare minimum? That was my entire childhood. There was this one summer where I worked double shifts at the gas station because the AC in our house broke and we needed to get it fixed before July. Our town regularly hits 90+ degrees. I handed over every paycheck to my dad. When we finally got the new unit installed, guess who got credit at the next family barbecue? Lila, because she helped pick out the most energy-efficient model. "Lila's so thoughtful," they bragged, erasing my sacrifice. By the time I started college, I was used to the dynamic. I was the workhorse, Lila was the princess. I'd given up trying to compete for their attention because it was crystal clear I'd never win. Don't get me wrong, Lila could be cool sometimes. When it was just the two of us hanging out, playing video games or whatever, she was just a normal kid. But put my parents in the mix and she'd transform into this manipulative mastermind. It was like she'd figured out early that there was a finite amount of parental love and attention, and she was determined to hoard it all. The gas station job was soul-crushing, by the way. People treat you like absolute garbage when you're behind that counter. You're nothing, a drunk spat, his words echoing my parents' neglect. I'd been called every name in the book, had drinks thrown at me, and once had to clean up after a dude who decided our bathroom floor was the perfect place to demonstrate the after effects of truck stop tacos. But I stuck with it because what choice did I have? Dad made it clear, no job, no college fund contribution. And their contribution was basically letting me live at home rent-free. Everything else, tuition, books, car insurance, that was on me. Meanwhile, Lila's future was discussed like she was choosing between Stanford and Princeton, when in reality she was a solid C student who was more interested in her TikTok following than academics. My parents started a separate college fund for her when she was like 9. 9. A secret fund I uncovered, a betrayal that hardened my resolve. I guess what I'm trying to say is that the pattern was established early. I wasn't just imagining favoritism. It was blatant, consistent, and soul-crushing. Their love was a prize I'd never win, a truth that forged my independence. Anyway, by the time Lila graduated high school, I was already 3 years deep into college, drowning in coursework, and now working at a warehouse on top of weekend shifts at the gas station. My parents constantly nagged me about focusing more on school, saying crap like, "You're not getting any younger, and what's your plan if you don't graduate soon?" Like they couldn't see I was killing myself trying to balance everything. The warehouse gig was brutal, but it paid better than the gas station. Instead of dealing with meth heads trying to steal energy drinks at 2:00 a.m., I was now throwing around 60 LB boxes for 8 hours straight. My body screamed, but my spirit burned for freedom. Lila's college prep was a whole different universe. She'd picked some private university 2 hours away. Her choice was pure vanity, a fact I'd later use against their excuses. Money wasn't even something she had to think about. My parents covered everything. Like, seriously, everything? Tuition covered, textbooks covered, meal plan with unlimited access. Yep, new laptop for homework, brand new MacBook Air, top specs, a gift they flaunted, oblivious to my struggle. But the tuition wasn't what broke me, it was something bigger. One evening, after an absolutely brutal 10-hour warehouse shift where I'd nearly gotten crushed by a pallet, I dragged myself home exhausted. All I wanted was a shower and maybe some leftovers before passing out. Instead, I walked in to find my parents sitting at the kitchen table with Lila, all of them practically glowing with excitement. "We have some exciting news," my mom chirped, her voice all sunshine and rainbows. They'd bought Lila an apartment, not rented, bought a whole-ass apartment. "It's her sanctuary," Dad boasted, blind to my pain. "So she doesn't have to deal with noisy neighbors or cramped dorm rooms." I couldn't even form words. I was still living at home because rent was completely out of the question for me. Every single dollar I earned went straight to tuition, textbooks, and gas money. I was driving a 1996 Toyota Corolla that broke down at least once a month, and they just dropped probably $250,000, 0 cents on an apartment for my sister. And Lila, she wasn't even grateful. She actually wrinkled her nose and said, "It's nice, I guess, but the bathroom's kind of small." I lost it. "Are you serious? They just bought you an entire apartment and you're complaining about the bathroom?" My mother shot me this look that could have frozen hell over. "Don't start, Ethan. This is a big milestone for Lila. You should be happy your sister has a comfortable space to concentrate on her studies." Yeah, right. Lila had never held down a job in her life, and she didn't give 2 shits about college. She only applied because our parents made her, just like they did with me. The difference, Lila had the luxury of being openly resentful about it while still getting everything handed to her. I swallowed my anger, went upstairs and slammed my bedroom door. I wanted to scream, to punch something, to make them understand how completely unfair this all was. But what was the point? They just dismissed me like always. "You're overreacting, Ethan." "Don't be so jealous, Ethan. Why can't you just be happy for your sister, Ethan?" The next morning, I had a 4:00 a.m. shift at the warehouse. Dad was already up making coffee. I grabbed a granola bar, not making eye contact. "About last night," he started. Here we go, I thought. "I think you owe your sister an apology." She was really excited about the apartment, and you ruined the moment. I nearly choked on my granola bar. I ruined her moment. Are you kidding me right now? Watch your tone, he warned. You're ungrateful, he snapped, his words a spark to my rebellion. You know what? Fine, I said, grabbing my keys. Tell Lila I'm sorry her bathroom isn't big enough in the free apartment she got for doing absolutely nothing. I left before he could respond, slamming the door behind me. My defiance was a vow to break free. At work that day, my buddy Tyler noticed I was off. You look like you want to murder someone, he said while we were on break. I told him about the apartment situation, expecting the usual. That sucks, man. Response. But Tyler got genuinely pissed on my behalf. That's messed up, he said, shaking his head. They're blind to you, he said, his anger mirroring mine. Have they always played favorites this bad? Pretty much, I admit, but this is next level. What are you going to do? Good question. What could I do? I was still financially dependent on them for housing. I couldn't afford both tuition and rent on my own, not with what the warehouse and gas station paid. Nothing, I said finally. Just keep my head down, finish school, and get the hell out. Tyler's nod was a silent pact, fueling my resolve. The apartment became the new family obsession. My parents proudly showed photos to every relative and neighbor, acting like they just accomplished something amazing. It's in this really nice area, my mom would gush to anyone who'd listen. Walking distance to campus, security building, quartz countertops. I'd just sit there trying not to roll my eyes while silently calculating how many hours I'd have to work to afford even 1 month's rent in a place like that. Meanwhile, Lila treated the whole situation with typical Lila indifference. After the initial excitement wore off, she started finding things to complain about. The walls are so blunt, she whined one evening while I was trying to force down dinner after an 11-hour shift. And the couch you picked out is too firm. Can't we replace it? My father nodded sympathetically. We'll sort it out, sweetheart. I couldn't hold my tongue. Why don't you paint the walls yourself? It's your apartment, isn't it? Lila rolled her eyes. I don't have time for that. Before I could respond, my mother jumped in, her tone sharp as a knife. Ethan, don't be rude. She has enough on her plate with the move and starting classes. You know how stressful this is for her. Stressful because, God forbid, Lila faced anything remotely challenging in her life. Yeah, I wouldn't know anything about stress, I muttered, thinking about my 50-hour work week, full course load, and the research paper that was due in 2 days that I hadn't even started yet. You're selfish, Mom hissed, her words a catalyst for my escape. Nothing, I said, shoving my plate away. I've got homework. I retreated to my room, the only place where I could actually breathe. The moving day was a whole production. Dad rented a U-Haul, even though Lila barely had any stuff. Mom bought everything new. Dishes, towels, bedding, cleaning supplies. They spent the entire day setting up her place exactly how she wanted it. I had exams that week, so I begged off helping. That earned me another lecture about family responsibility, but I couldn't bring myself to care. You're letting us down, Dad scolded, unaware I'd soon turn the table. When they finally finished moving her in, my parents came home looking exhausted but satisfied, like they'd just completed some major life accomplishment. You should see it, Ethan, my mom said, scrolling through photos on her phone. It's just perfect for her. I made appropriate noises of interest while wondering if they'd ever put this much effort into anything related to my life. The answer, of course, was no. That night I made a decision. I needed to get out, not just eventually, but as soon as possible. This house, this family dynamic, it was slowly crushing my soul. I'd find a way to make it work financially. I'd take out more loans if I had to. Whatever it took to escape the constant reminder that I was the afterthought, the one who had to work for everything while watching Lila coast through life on their generosity. Little did I know, things were about to get way more complicated. About 2 months into Lila's first semester, things started getting weird. She stopped coming home on weekends, which honestly wasn't that unusual. She'd always been social. But when my mom brought it up at dinner, acting all hurt that her baby wasn't visiting, I noticed something. My dad looked uncomfortable, like he wanted to say something but decided not to. His silence was a clue I'd soon unravel. Then came the money requests. First, it was just small stuff that my parents didn't question. The utility bill was higher than I expected. I needed to buy this special textbook for a class, but soon it escalated to bigger stuff. My car needs repairs. The car they bought her for graduation, by the way. I need to pay a deposit for a spring break trip with my friends. My parents handed over cash without question. And I mean literally cash. I saw my dad counting out $50 bills from the safe in their closet one night when he thought I was at work. Meanwhile, I was picking up every overtime shift I could get just to afford ramen and gas money. One weekend in October, I was at home studying for midterms when my mom came into my room holding an envelope. "Ethan, could you do me a huge favor? I accidentally took some of Lila's financial aid forms when I was helping her organize last week. She needs them ASAP for the bursar's office. Could you drop them off?" I wanted to say no. It was my only day off in 3 weeks, and I had a massive statistics exam on Monday, but the look on my mom's face told me this wasn't really a request. "Fine," I sighed. "I'll head over there now. Oh, and maybe take her out to lunch while you're there." "My treat," she said, handing me a $20 along with the envelope. "She needs you," Mom said, unaware of the storm I'd uncover. I tried calling and texting Lila to let her know I was coming, but got no response. Her silence was a warning I ignored. When I got to the apartment, the one my parents had spent their retirement money on, I used the spare key they'd given me for emergencies. The moment I opened the door, I knew something was wrong. First off, the smell hit me like a truck. Weed, cigarettes, and something else. Something chemical that burned my nostrils. A stench of betrayal I'd never forget. The place was trashed. And I don't mean normal, messy college students trashed. I mean destroyed. Empty beer cans and pizza boxes littered the living room. The fancy white couch my parents had bought that Lila complained was too firm had burn marks all over it. There were stains on the carpet that I didn't even want to identify. And there, passed out on that couch, was some stringy-hamed dude I'd never seen before. Shirtless, covered in terrible tattoos, skinny to the point of looking sick. He was dead to the world, one arm hanging off the couch, the other clutching a nearly empty bottle of vodka. I heard the shower running and figured Lila was in there. I kicked the couch and the guy jolted awake, eyes bloodshot and unfocused. "Who the hell are you?" he slurred. "I'm Lila's brother." "Who the hell are you?" I shot back. "You're in my sister's life?" I demanded, my protective instincts flaring. He smirked. "I'm Austin, her boyfriend." Boyfriend? Lila hadn't mentioned any boyfriend. This guy looked at least 24 with badly done tattoos, and now that I could see his arms better, track marks were visible on the inside of his elbows. My stomach dropped. "How long have you been staying here?" I asked, looking around at the disaster zone that was supposed to be my sister's study space. "About 3 months," he said casually. "Your sister's cool, man. Real generous." He laughed like there was some joke I wasn't getting. Before I could respond, Lila emerged from the bathroom, wrapped in a towel. She froze when she saw me. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" Her voice was high, panicky. She looked thinner than I remembered, with dark circles under her eyes and a scabbed-over sore at the corner of her mouth. Her frail form was a shock, a betrayal of their trust in her. "Mom sent me with your financial aid forms," I said, slowly, taking in her appearance. "What's going on here, Lila?" "Nothing," she said quickly. "Austin's just visiting for the weekend." She shot him a warning look. "That's not what he said," I replied. "And what's that?" I pointed to a small metal pipe and what looked like a small baggie of crystals on the coffee table that I hadn't noticed before. "It's nothing," she rushed forward, sweeping the items into a drawer. Just some stuff for a party." "You're lying," I accused, my voice steady with rage. I'd worked enough late nights at the gas station to know what meth looked like. Hell, I'd had to call the cops twice on people shooting up in our bathroom. My baby sister, the golden child, was using, and based on her twitchy behavior and weight loss, it wasn't just recreational. "How long has this been going on?" I demanded. "Is this where all that money's going to support this loser and buy drugs?" Austin stood up, swaying slightly. "Watch your mouth, bro," I'm not your bro, I snapped. How old are you anyway? And do you have a job, or are you just living off my parents' money? Austin took a step toward me, but Lila stepped between us, clutching her towel. Please, Ethan, don't make a big deal out of this. Austin's just going through a rough patch, and I'm helping him out. We're careful, I swear. Careful, Lila. That's meth. There's no care with that. I looked around the trashed apartment, the apartment my parents had sacrificed for, had bragged about, he had thrown in my face as an example of their support. All while their precious daughter was funding a deadbeat's drug habit and getting pulled into addiction herself. You need help, I said finally, and Mom and Dad need to know about this. No, she shrieked, grabbing my arm. You can't tell them. They'll kill me. Please, Ethan, I'll clean up. I'll get Austin to leave. Just please don't tell them. Austin laughed from the couch. Baby, you know I'm not going anywhere. We had plans, remember? He gave me this smug look that made me want to punch him. For a moment I felt that protective instinct toward my sister, but then I remembered how my parents always favored her while criticizing me for minor things like a B- grade. She dug herself into this. I gave Lila 1 week to clean up the apartment and get rid of Austin, or I'd tell our parents everything. She promised to fix it, while Austin dismissively told me to leave. I warned her about the path she was on before leaving. In the car, I debated whether to tell my parents immediately. Would they even believe me, or would they somehow blame me? Lila texted, begging me not to tell them, promising to handle it. I'll fix it, I swear, she pleaded, her desperation a hollow promise. At home, Mom asked about Lila. I kept my responses neutral, hiding my discovery. She mentioned sending Lila care packages, which reminded me how differently we were treated. Their blind devotion to her was a wound I'd soon expose. Over the next few days, I wrestled with what I'd discovered at Lila's apartment. The drugs, Austin, the complete disaster she'd made of the place my parents had bought her. I checked in with her, but her responses were vague. Working on it, need more time, it's complicated. By day 5, I knew she wasn't going to handle it. I decided to keep quiet for now. Maybe she'd surprise me. Maybe she'd get her shit together. But deep down, I knew better. Meanwhile, I was drowning in work and school. Between warehouse shifts, gas station weekends, and midterms, I was barely functioning. Something had to give, and unfortunately, it was my statistics class. I bombed the midterm. Complete failure. I knew it was coming, but still, seeing that F on my student portal hit hard. I didn't tell my parents right away. What was the point? They had never cared about my struggles before. But then my professor emailed my dad, apparently still listed as my emergency contact. When my dad confronted me, I explained I was working 50+ hours while taking a full course load. You need to make school a priority, Dad said. You're wasting time and money. That's when I snapped. All the frustration about Lila's apartment came pouring out. Who's wasting money? Mine? You're not paying my tuition, but you bought Lila a car and an apartment. Mom walked in during the argument. Don't start that again. Your sister is going through a difficult time. You have no idea. You want to know why I failed? I found your precious daughter's apartment trashed with her jobless boyfriend doing meth. That's where your money's been going. They didn't believe me. Dad grabbed his keys and they went to see for themselves. Hours later, they returned looking devastated. You were right, Dad admitted. It's worse than you said. Yet, even then, they made excuses for her. This isn't Lila's fault. That boyfriend took advantage of her, Mom insisted. She chose to start using it. She chose to let him move in and lie to you. You don't understand addiction, Dad countered. She didn't choose this. They focused entirely on getting Lila into rehab, bringing her comforts while I worked double shifts trying to salvage my grade. A month later, Dad confronted me again about my continued academic struggles. Lila has an addiction. The counselors say she was self-medicating. We failed her, Mom explained. And what about me? I'm exhausted. Her problems matter. Mine don't. Lila's situation is medical. Your grades are about effort, Dad said. The injustice hit me hard. She destroys a $250,000 0-cents apartment doing meth and gets sympathy. I struggle with one class while working 2 jobs and I'm lazy. Nobody said you're lazy. Lila didn't choose her situation. Stop, she absolutely chose this. You've never set boundaries for her. Your sister is fighting for her life and you're making this about you, Dad shouted. No, you made this about me. You've always expected me to be responsible while never actually supporting me. I'm done trying to earn your approval. I declared I'm dropping out. Dad's face turned purple. You're a failure, even with her issues. At least she's fighting. You're just quitting. Something inside me broke. My sister was a meth addict who destroyed their apartment, yet I was still disappointed. That night I decided to move out rather than drop out immediately. When Dad tried guilt-tripping me the next morning, I challenged him to name one thing they'd done for me comparable to what they'd done for Lila. We let you live here rent-free. That's nothing, I shot back, neglecting my breaking point. Meanwhile, Lila gets everything without consequences. That's different. She's sick, and I've been drowning for years, while you make excuses for her. I couldn't take it anymore. I moved out that weekend, found a room in a shared house, switched to part-time status, and changed my major to computer science. For the first time, I was making decisions for myself, not to please my parents. Fast forward about 3 years, life took a major turn. After I moved out, I finished my CS degree with honors while working both jobs and living in that crappy shared house with 3 random dudes. Eventually, I landed a decent job at a tech startup as a junior developer. For the first time, I was making decent money doing something I actually enjoyed. I upgraded from the shared house to a small 1-bedroom apartment. I also started dating this hot girl named Sophia from the UX team at work, and even adopted this weird-looking shelter mustang named Gizmo. My new life was a defiance of their doubts. Things with my family stabilized into what I'd call a distant but functional relationship. We did holidays together and occasional family dinners, but kept conversations superficial. Lila went through rehab. She had one relapse about 18 months later, but seemed to be doing better, taking community college classes and working part-time at a bookstore. My parents seemed humbled by the whole experience. They weren't as blatant about the favoritism anymore, and they actually showed some interest in my career. I think seeing their golden child fall so hard forced them to reassess some things. Then came the phone call that changed everything. It was a random Thursday evening. I'd just gotten home from work and was about to take Gizmo for a walk when Dad called. His voice sounded strained as he asked if we could talk. It turned out they were having financial difficulties. Specifically, the bank was threatening foreclosure on the house. Between Lila's rehab costs, which insurance only partially covered, the massive loss they took selling her trashed apartment, they recouped only about 35% of what they paid, and dipping into retirement, taking a second mortgage. They were about 4 months behind on payments. Sissies where it got rich. Dad asked if I could help them out with about $20,000, 0 cents, to get current on their mortgage, plus more for other debts. After years of working at that disgusting gas station, after being told I needed to contribute while Lila got everything handed to her, after finally building my own stable life, they wanted me to bail them out. I'd only been at my job for 6 months. That amount would have wiped out my entire emergency fund and then some. When I asked why Lila couldn't help, Dad got defensive. She's giving what she can, but she's still getting back on her feet. She's always first, he said, his bias a final straw. After a long talk with Sophia and a sleepless night, I drove to my parents' house. They looked hopeful when they saw me, clearly expecting a check. Instead, I told them straight up that I wasn't giving them the money. Mom started with the guilt trip, but I cut her off. I explained that bailing them out wouldn't fix the real problem. They'd never learned to live within their means or set proper boundaries. They'd spent decades giving Lila whatever she wanted while expecting me to fend for myself. Now that consequences had finally caught up, they were turning to me, the kid they never supported, to save them. When they tried to argue it wasn't about Lila, I pointed out that the foreclosure was happening precisely because they'd overextended themselves for her. I told them I loved them and would help with emotional support or resources, but I wouldn't enable the cycle anymore with cash. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done, but also the most necessary. The fallout was exactly what you'd expect. Mom called crying, Dad sent angry texts accusing me of abandoning family and Lila, who they obviously told, messaged saying I was heartless. For a while I questioned my decision, but Sophia reminded me that boundaries aren't heartless. They're healthy. My parents eventually sold the house and moved into a modest one-bedroom apartment. Dad found a better-paying job with less prestige. Lila had to get a roommate and work more hours. They were humbled but surviving. Our relationship changed permanently after that. There's a distance now that wasn't there before, but it's healthier than the dysfunctional closeness we had. They know I won't be manipulated anymore. Meanwhile, Sophia and I got engaged last spring and bought a small house with a decent yard for Gizmo. Our home is my sanctuary, built on my terms. Sometimes I look around and can't believe how far I've come from that exhausted kid working night shifts and cleaning up mysterious fluids at the gas station. My chosen family has grown stronger over the years. Friends from work, neighbors, Sophia's awesome parents who've welcomed me without question. We have game nights, cookouts, people who help without keeping score. It's what family should be, supportive without manipulation. Thinking about starting our own family soon brings up complicated feelings about parenthood. I know exactly what not to do. Don't play favorites. Don't make one kid work while giving everything to another. Don't dismiss legitimate struggles. But the positive model is harder to envision. I just know my kids will be valued for who they are, not what they achieve or how convenient they are. And oh, the exhausted, resentful kid working double shifts at that gas station wouldn't recognize me now. Not just because of external success, but because of internal peace. I'm no longer defined by my family's opinion or support. I built this life brick by brick, sacrifice by sacrifice. It's mine, and nobody, not even family, gets to take that from me. My freedom is hard-won, but the scars of their favoritism remind me to guard my peace.